Do you feel like you never have enough money, that there's never enough to make ends meet? Hi, I'm Shaunelle, and welcome to the latest episode of Crap, Now What? A podcast that I developed in this last year of 2024. So, depending on when you see this episode, I'm giving you kind of a time and date stamp on it. I started this podcast in the spirit of bringing up topics that should hit home for many hundreds of millions, millions of people, really, millions of households, even. For those people who have found their way to this podcast or one of the shorter versions that we've posted in our social media. And the spirit of this podcast is to share slices of life where we're talking about the emotions, the things that bring us to those moments in time where we say, crap, now what? And we don't, in many cases, have the preparation that we needed financially, or maybe there's a different way. And in the spirit of helping you to be as informed as possible, to possibly have the tools in your toolbox to be able to approach and react appropriately to some specific financial situations, and also really honestly as an outreach to you, to invite you to visit with someone on my team about your particular situation, because in many cases, honestly, most people, we can double the retirement dollars, help dollars to last longer, help to make ends meet in specific situations when there's an emergency with an unexpected illness. I can go on and on and on. And if you go back through my podcast topics, they do, like I say, take one of these slices of life and bring them forward. Now, I don't want to be a Debbie Downer right here in the holidays, but most likely about the time that you run into this particular episode, it's going to be rounding the corner to the new year. So what we do as humans at this time of year, we're planning and preparing and doing special things for the people that we love. In many cases, we're stretching our budgets, or we're draining our set aside savings on gifts and travel and all of the things that come at this time of year. And it's generally a very blessed time of year, a time when people feel hopeful, and a time when people feel connected. And I think those connections and how they've changed over the last few years coming off of COVID is really just ramping up. People, I think, still don't quite feel the same. They still don't quite visit like they did, because so many patterns and habits that we had formed prior to got dumped upside down in a bucket when we could not interact with each other. And then we come out of this with a different lifestyle, a different pattern, and different goals. And in many cases, a lot of people still, I truly believe this because I talk to dozens upon dozens of people each week, hundreds of people each month, thousands in the year. And not everybody is feeling the same or recovered. So this is very relevant. I do want to remind you that this podcast, Crap, Now What, is based on my opinions. I do weave in some genuine financial points. I am not the expert on everything. In areas, I am very strong. I'm very strong in helping people to untax their retirement dollars so that a person can enjoy more of the money that they've earned. And that's very important because I meet so many people who are underprepared for retirement that the ability to double those dollars is amazing. And it's life-changing for people. And that's where I get my fulfillment. But I'm not the expert on everything, but I can bring certain areas that I am an expert in, and then also to help share, but encourage people to talk to others that are more of an expert in particular areas. That's my caveat in there. So I want to make sure that everybody knows, but I want people to know too, though, that myself, my team, we're all very much aligned in helping people, like I said, to have more of their dollars that they can enjoy. So not expecting to be a Debbie Downer today, but I am going to get real. I'm going to weave together some of the things we've talked about all year long about things about money. And again, the spirit of this is to have people feel as informed as possible of their options and to be prepared as much as possible. When you go and Google, if you've ever done this, and some people do have to start from a Google standpoint or just do so out of habit. Google for financial advice, Google for retirement advice, reading articles and different resources. There is so much noise out there. I think that's the case on almost any topic anymore on the internet. It's just gotten to be something that's been around for 20 plus years, almost 30, and there's just so much noise out there. And how to sort through that noise, how to find someone that you can reach out to, how to find a resource that you can actually trust. And why is this important? Most people, there has been a shift over time, ever since coming really off of the Second World War, that shift in careers and jobs and how people have retirement. Coming off of the wars and coming off of the Depression, there were more and more and more types of industry, people that were associated with unions and other different types like government positions, even educators, teachers. Teachers are typically still earning a pension after they've chosen to retire. There was an influx of people that were earning pensions and having pensions to be able to fall back on top of Social Security. Social Security is still out there. We thought it was going to be gone by now, but if we really looked at it, we can't afford as a country to let so many people drop off of Social Security. So we have to continue to dig ourselves into a greater amount of debt in order to provide Social Security. And that's very critical because nearly 50% of Americans are underprepared and have not used and taken advantage of a 401k or another tax deferred account. And I'm adamant about this figure, and it's very concerning to me. I'm not a big fan of 401ks because it's tax deferred. It didn't turn out to be anymore. Their use of a 401k didn't turn out to be the biggest benefit that we were told it would be. But what it did turn out to be is supposedly a supplement to pension, but now less and less Americans have pensions. I've talked about this before. So you have less funding coming from former employers. At least a smaller percentage of households have that. We still have Social Security, thank goodness, because people need this. And then the number of people who have taken advantage of a 401k is approximately 56%. It's about 50 to 56%. This is very concerning. And it's very concerning to me because I'm passionate, like I said, about people having enough money to live a comfortable retirement. So there are so many things at a time when we go through the holidays and we are probably financially, most households are financially putting their neck out there to travel for the holidays, as I mentioned, or to buy the gifts that they want to for their loved ones. And then we come back off of those holidays, and then we have that crunch in January, that New Year's resolution time of the year, where people become hopeful. They try to recommit. I'm not the expert on how well that goes, but you hear it over and over again if you watch the news and you follow it, or if you've just walked the earth for a number of years. New Year's resolutions only last so long. A percentage of those resolutions are probably tied to finances and other ways to improve a position, but then life takes over, need takes over to have money in certain areas, and suddenly most people revert back to their previous habits. And once again, we're writing it off and saying, okay, well, now next year. When we talk about finances, though, no matter where your bucket is coming from for your retirement, for even your savings, if it's not earning compound interest, then it should be. That is a very big position and something that you should take advantage of. There are places where you can go with your money and have it earn compound interest. Now, is it going to earn, if you put it in the bank on Monday, compound by Friday, or compound even in the next year? It's usually a little slower going, but it's a bigger return. So those types of dollars going into compound interest accounts have to be true savings, true retirement planning, whatever you want to call it. And so what I see as I step back, and I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, coming into the holidays and rounding up into the time of year where people are starting to make and recommit to resolutions. I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but on the other hand, if, as we've talked about on this podcast before, if $100,000 a year coming in for income, and 70 some percent, the statistic I've used before, if over 70% of the households that are making $100,000 a year do not feel like they're financially stable, what are the first few things to go? Well, first of all, typically we probably would start as humans to run up credit card debt and be throwing money at interest that becomes mounting. But if true financial health, ideal financial health, some of the things that our parents, my parents, in their 80s, I'm in my 50s. If you have parents that came off of the Depression, came through and had the pensions, many of the people that have pensions are earning and still using Social Security. They saved up money for retirement, maybe not always 401ks because that pension was known to be there already. But if we look at the households that did do some financial education, or the households that by osmosis people have learned to save, I know many people who said, my parents taught me that when I went to be a babysitter or I cut grass, that you put 50% away for savings. And that's how young people learned how to start saving money, because they had the joy of taking what was in their savings and maybe having it available without stress to cover something that was unexpected as an expense, or to watch it continue to grow, possibly for something special later. But also having that living expenses amount of money for putting gas in the car or something along those lines. And we learned these habits from our parents, going back to that $100,000 a year. If a household that's bringing in $100,000 a year, now that's gross, not net, and now we're teaching over and over as financial advisors, so to speak, and experts in the area, that at least 10% needs to go to savings, so that you have savings for a rainy day. So that money is sitting there when you've accidentally backed out of your garage and you've hit the garage door, and now you've got car damage, vehicle damage, as well as garage door damage. That's where savings comes in. So take 10% off the top of that. If you're spiritual, and you're tithing at the level of 10% of your income, which a lot of people still do, it was ingrained into us as we grew up. Or if you are going to church throughout the holidays and you decide to make a contribution. But if you're saving 10%, and I've used this example when I've talked to people, you're taking 10% and tithing with that. So there's 10% for savings, and I'm not going to be negative about it, but I'm going to be real. 10% coming out for savings, 10% coming out for tithing. And now we're just getting down to what experts say, Google all you want, 10% of pre-taxed income should be going into retirement savings. I don't know about you, but if you're in middle America, that's not happening in very many households. And I know this because I talk to people all the time. I talk to people who are facing, they're 60 years old, 60, 65 years old, and they've saved up 100,000. That's not going to get somebody very far. And there's a lot of concern and worry. And part of what I try to do is alleviate that concern and worry, and at least try to put those dollars in a place where it can be multiplied more. That said, back to planning for retirement, because in the early part of this next year of 2025, it's going to be tax season, and planning is going to be on our foremost on our mind. So if you follow and are disciplined enough, which is what our parents tried to teach us, to be disciplined enough, but things change and people are people and have a need to dip into these funds for other reasons than what they were assigned for. Suddenly it has a ripple effect as to where a person is today not having enough. So let's talk about this again, that 10%, 10%, 10%. I probably should make a name for that just so that I'm not constantly repeating it. But if 10% is supposed to, of pre-tax salary is supposed to be put aside for retirement, if that's done, then on a $100,000 salary, there would be $1 million set aside. If it's done appropriately, there would be $1 million, depending on when retirement is. We still want to, as humans, retire closer to 60 than not. I still meet people who are in their 20s and 30s saying they want to retire in their 50s. Well, that's not doing a very good job of taking advantage of compound interest, and it's something that is going to be available for very few to be able to retire in their 50s. The thing that is not necessarily on people's radar, when we feel like in our bones and our body that we're tired of working for the last 35, 40 years or more, that we're going to be living longer. On average, people are living longer. My two parents are just now 84 years old. I talk to people all the time who have parents in their 80s. That if you retire in your 60s, that's at least 20 some years of living off of those retirement dollars, needing those retirement dollars. The other impact on the savings for retirement, I'm going to get to after I share a few more numbers with you, because if you take that $100,000 salary and take 22% out for taxes, I still haven't subtracted off, technically speaking, anything for contributions to the 401k, contributions to FICA, any of the other deductions that you have coming out of your paychecks. I'm just going with simple math here to make a point. $100,000, 22% tax bracket nets $6,500 a month, sort of. You still have your FICA, da-da-da. Let's just use the figure of $6,500 a month. We know that gets chewed up. If you do that 10, 10, 10, you've got $650 going to tithing. Those people that are very tied into tithing, and it's important you take 10% off the top, you take another 10% off the top for savings, and 10% perhaps should be taken out and going into a 401k. I say it with hesitation because I'd rather see another $650 going someplace where it's not subject to market volatility. Protecting those dollars is more important than ever because most people are going to come up short. So if you're on track to be coming up short in dollars for retirement, the very least you should be doing is contacting my team, talking to me, getting into this chat here. If you know you're going to be coming up short, and that's almost everybody is going to be coming up short in where they're saving for retirement, you need to look for sources for compound interest. You should take advantage of newer financial tools, more that have been designed. It's continually doing that to have no market volatility, but still a very nice upside. I don't know anyone who would be disappointed in earning 8%, something along those lines, or even more. But on average in that 8.5 range, and not have those drops in the market hurt them. To take advantage of financial options, to have interest in that 8.25 range, I'm just saying that these things are available to have that upside, but not have the risk on the downside. I don't care anymore if you're 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years old. I talk to 70-year-olds that still would like to be able to do some shifts in this area. Zero or no exposure to the downside of the market. Upsides of 8.25, not a guarantee, but awfully with their track histories, and uncapped growth, compound interest. That's the message for those people who know that they're under saving. This message is also for people who have adult children. We always want our children to have more, to be more comfortable, to be more and more comfortable, make more money, have a more comfortable life than what we had, or learn from what we've learned from. So as we start to be in our 50s and 60s and we're retiring, we're sending a message to our younger adult children that there are better ways and new ways. And this is very important distinction because what I've been painting sounds very doom and gloomy because it's real. 70, 80% at least of the households know that they're going to come up short on retirement dollars. Another pain point I mentioned that I was going to come back to. When it comes to retirement dollars, self-funded and self-directed accounts, such as IRAs, Fidelity accounts, you name it, but there are some people that are more active in those accounts. There is a very real concern, and my point is to find better options. Okay. Another reason why I'm worried. I'm worried because I talk to people, like I said, every day of the week. And people turn to me and my team for guidance as to what they can do. But if living day to day on $100,000 doesn't afford financial comfort now, it's not going to afford financial comfort later in retirement. And finding ways to right that ship is very valuable. As I was doing my research to add more numbers and some different examples, because if you go out and do your own independent research, you're going to, like I said, there's a plethora of information. More and more people are wanting to retire early. So one example I happened to find when I was putting this together for today, can a 60-year-old retire on $500,000? $500,000 sitting in a 401k or an IRA. Some tax deferred account in most cases is where the money is usually sitting in something that is due to have taxes. According to AI on Google that found this article, the article said, and it's on USA retirement.com, something along those lines. I kind of dismissed it because this was almost laughable. $500,000 sitting in retirement for a 60-year-old is a lot of money for most people. A lot. We've started to talk about how it would even happen. Not very many households even have that high 500,000, which is why I was laughing about it. But what's even more laughable is that, yes, is what AI said. Yes, you can retire with $500,000 in an account at 60 if you can live off of a draw of $30,000 a year from the ages 60 to 85. That's 25 years. $30,000, that's gross. That's before taxes are taken out. So then it gets down to, as AI said, you can meet your needs with $20K coming out of that 30, because it gets taxed. Remember, you get to live off of only about $1,667 a month. That's not horrible if you have Social Security to tack onto it and that you've actually paid down most of your big expenses, paid off mortgages. But I'm going to tell you again, not mention this one too much, but most people have mortgages, and that's still a really big payment. In many cases would wipe out that $1,600 in no time. The reason that's important is because there's a whole generation of people that are coming through the retirement system that are going to be underwhelmed. If been underprotected, they're going to be finding themselves in a place of huge stress and disappointment. And we need to be doing things now, but there are things for everybody in every generation. There are ways to at least protect the dollars and help them to grow only on the upside, and to at least try to double those dollars. Another thing that is a huge concern, and I've mentioned this over again, and I did a whole podcast episode on the number of people who use 401ks as a bank and take out loans. And in that particular podcast episode, I pointed out that you're really hurting yourself. You're not really borrowing from yourself and paying yourself back and growing the account. You're not growing it, even if you are being your own bank, so to speak, with your 401k. But look at it. I just showed you over and over. I can give you dozens of examples, and we all know it's true. Most people see their parents going through it. Many people in my age group could see it's about 10 years on the horizon, and crap, I'm not going to have enough money. And what do I do now? So yes, I've been on a little bit of a grandstanding motion here. I'm worried. I'm concerned about most of the households that I talk to. I'm very passionate that my team can at least help those things. But what I really want you to do is you get into the new year. I was talking with a lady the other day in Georgia, and she's just one of many examples of people who have wanted their children to start to see that there are other ways to prepare, that we don't go down the path of the traditional. Because the other thing that I'm seeing is that, back to my $500,000 at age 60, that's based on a computation of taking out only 3 to 4% a year. I haven't met very many people who can live off of 3 or 4% of that a year. I just gave you a figure, $1,600 a month. Not especially if they're used to bringing in $4K a month or $5K a month. Nobody wants to change their lifestyle that much. Social Security can't make up all the difference. And we're seeing it over and over and over again. I go to seminars It used to be the rule of 4%. You take out 4% and live off of it. Scribbling it all over my notebook. 4%. Most people are taking out at least 6%. At least 6% a year. That means the money runs out faster. I've met people who have worked in the same job for 30, 35 years. They need to get off their feet. They need to be able to take care of themselves and get their health in order so that they can be grandparents and be around for their family in their retirement years. And there's this feeling of desire to be retired. Sometimes a feeling of, it's my time now. It's my time now to be able to rest. I don't know how a person can feel comfortable resting when the money's going to run out. When just one small thing that happens that's unexpected and your expenses go up, and the impact of that on your finances. So what do I want you to do? I want people to enjoy the holidays as much as possible. I want people to go into 2025 with a plan that's financial. Usually, when I have just an extra couple minutes at the end of the business day and I go ahead and take one more phone call, or I make one more phone call, it's oftentimes that one more phone call, let's just get another one in there, where it ends up making a difference. What I want you to do is allow and invite yourself to make your own difference in your life. Take a few extra minutes to reach out. You can reach out to my team. That invitation is always there. And we help people all over the country to at least, like I said, enjoy one more dollar in their retirement, to have that one more trip to see family, to be able to take that dream trip, to be able to have less anxiety. That's my real goal. Give your future self less anxiety. Like I said, it's really 3 things that you can do that you may not really know how to find these tools, but protect your money from market volatility. It's available. Have uncapped upside. I really would say bring it on anybody who's going to try to tell me that that's not available, because it is. It's not easy to find, but it is available. And take advantage of compound interest. And if at all possible, be willing to listen to someone who's going to tell you that we're not talking about putting extra money in your 401k. We're not talking about putting your money in a brokerage account that has so much volatility because it tracks the S&P 500. I'm not talking about a Roth IRA or any type of Roth conversion. I'm going to bring that, and I'm going to show you with the numbers that when you're going from a 401k to a Roth conversion, that it doesn't really make you any more money. Take the time and give yourself the gift of reaching out and looking for and asking for the newer tools and newer opportunities that are out there that you can take advantage, so that you can have a slight bit more comfort, and set yourself up for your future. If you like any of the words that I have to share, please, you know what to do. I am very passionate. My team is very passionate. We're very much aligned, and we're everywhere in the country. I've talked to a number of people all over the country, and actually even over in the Bahamas, etc. But give yourself that gift. give yourself the gift of less stress. I can't say it enough, and I probably say if somebody was going to count this, they would say I said a dozen or 2 dozen times in this podcast episode. But I also want to thank Caleb, who's going to take this and post my podcast all over the Crap Now What podcast and all of the different channels for listening in your favorite places. If you can find me in of the whatever it is, 50,000 creators out there, it's a big number. And also look for Blazing Star Wealth Strategies on Facebook, Instagram. Follow me on TikTok. And I have currently Powerful Money Lady, but there's going to be some new things that you're going to see in 2025 coming from this microphone, so to speak. And I thank you very much. We'll drop another episode typically on Mondays, as well as put this into different formats all over our social media. Okay, so if you're still listening to this podcast at this stage, this is the boring stuff. This is the disclaimer. And I'm doing this because, yes, I do care about who you are and what you do with your money. And I'm going to be here to help give you some ideas. However, these are just ideas, they're theories. Sometimes these are ideas that are coming into my head based on what's going on in the world at this time. And they're not necessarily specific financial advice. I do encourage you, if you decide to do anything with your money, make any changes, seek the advice of a professional. You're welcome to follow up with me or with someone else, and make sure that what you're doing is something that fits with you, your lifestyle, your finances, and it's a strategy that's specific to you. Again, these are ideas and concepts. Do not necessarily take these as specific financial advice and follow it directly without having a full education.